This is my house. Yeah. My mother hates flamingos. That's why my sister and I buy her so many. Our little joke. The Holy Spirit, Jesus. Now, yep. Come on and see. This is my little prayer spot. And look what we have here. You'll never guess. No, it's not Marie. You know what this is? Holy water. That's right. Bless the dog. He loves when I bless him. Yeah, no, he really doesn't. Holy water font. Jesus. Last Supper. Mary. Icons. You know, I could take you all over. We basically look like a Catholic gift store. And yes, I have a water bottle, holy water spray bottle. Yep. Good morning, guys. I was just outside doing one of my walking rosaries that I learned to do when I went to the Dominican Sisters. That was a great trip. We girls know that Taylor's mermaid kicked it. Even though that group lost, they certainly gave us something to laugh about. Anyway, I was doing my walking rosary and I decided, you know, like today's readings are pretty simple to understand. Abraham was promised the world, and you know his descendants were going to be as multitude as the stars. And even though he got impatient and didn't wait for God's timing and made some bad decisions, God still honored that bargain and gave him the son that he desired, and he created a nation. Pretty simple to understand, you know. God promises, we trust, God will give us heaven. We just got to make it to the end game. And then you go over to Jesus and he basically says, I am, which they tried to stone him because when he said, I am, he became the burning bush and he told everybody he was God. And they didn't like it. And we all know that you have three choices. You can think God's a lunatic, crazy guy, which don't think so. Sorry, people followed him. You usually run away from crazy people. You can think that, you know, he is a liar, which again, people wouldn't die for a liar. You know, like so many saints were martyred. They're not going to do it for someone who lied to them. They're going to do it for the real deal. Or are you going to believe he's God? If he's God, well, then you have to trust what he promises, which means we got to make it to the end game. Right? And it's not easy. Abraham showed us that, you know, the longer it takes to get to God's promises, the easier it is to fall away from the truth, which is, you know, heaven. So my challenge for you today is, are you making your house a holy home? What do I mean by that? Well, I just found out a really cool story as I'm reading this consecration to St. Joseph about a holy house, right? That the Holy Family lived together in this tiny little home that St. Joseph had built. And it was in Nazareth, of course. And one day in like the 1200s, the house disappeared and all the people came out and all they saw was the foundation of the house. Well, you know, in Croatia, overnight, this house was there. It had no foundation. It was just kind of disturbed the dirt. And it stayed there for a while. And there was a reason that the house moved. It was because Muslims came into Nazareth and sacked all of Nazareth. So the house stayed there for a while, but, you know, people realizing that this was some kind of special house, kept going in and stealing things from the house. So up one day and the house moved again, and it moved onto this hill in Italy, and you know, where two brothers were fighting over the mystery house that was drawing in pilgrims. So rather than sit there and fight over who owns the house that just appeared, you know, they decided that, you know, they would just charge the pilgrims and make money off of it. Well, the house disappeared again, and it ended up in Italy, in this little town, Laratio. I say things badly. You can look this story up. In Italy, and you know what? At this point, the Catholic Church sent out a ton of different people. So what they did is they verified and the size of this house, okay? because everyone suspected, because we knew that in Nazareth, the house that disappeared was the house that Mary, Joseph, and Jesus lived in when they were in, Nazareth. So they measured everything. They took accurate details of the house itself. And then they went back to the different places that the house had been, and they measured the landscape that left an imprint into the earth, and finally went all the way back to Nazareth and measured the actual foundation. And they found out it was perfectly identical in all spots. So they attribute that to angels moving that house to protect that house, because that was a holy home. Years later, they sent scientists in to test the materials of the house, because Italy and Nazareth have quite a bit different materials. And after they finished it, all of the wood and all of the stone and everything in that tiny house was identified as being from Nazareth. So now you can go to Italy and you can see where the Holy Family lived. And that's so important because, Jesus didn't need a dad to protect, him. Jesus is God. God could have protected Mary in all things, but God allowed himself not only to be born as a child, but to be raised by a man, a very good, a very holy, powerful, strong man who he himself gave up his virginity so that he could protect the Virgin Mother. And Joseph, he took this very seriously, and he taught his son his trade, and he taught his son how to pray. He taught his son how to be a man. And Jesus allowed this influence over him because he knew that Saint Joseph was a good and holy man. It doesn't matter what our family looks like, okay? And I know that we live in a world where sometimes mom and dads aren't always together. Y'all know my story, and you know how seriously I take that, right? That my sons grew up without a dad for part of their life. And it is hard. It's hard to trust a good father when maybe you don't have a good father. It's hard to trust a good mother when maybe you're struggling with your mother. But irregardless, Jesus showed us through the Holy Family, and even just this moving of this home that he wanted to protect, he showed us how holy a home can be. I love my home. But now that my dad has died, it's probably going to be where I probably need to move. I've lived in this house for over 20 years. It's a beautiful house. It's nothing super fabulous or fancy, but it's been my home. But that's okay, because when I asked Gavin the other day if we had to move, would he be sad? And he said, well, I grew up in this house and I'd be sad. But as long as I'm surrounded by the people I love, it's a home. And that made me think, if God went out of his way to send angels to move the home that he was raised in by human parents, how are we making our home holy? Especially now that we're getting kind of like frustrated with our four walls, we're like, and we're probably going to be stuck in these four walls for at least another month where, we don't want to go out, and we shouldn't. We should trust the quarantine. But, at those times when the journey is starting to get a little bit long, that friction occurs or loneliness sets in. I know some of you are like only children, and you've got to be going crazy. At least if you have your brothers and sisters, you can, beat them up or fight with them. And it really is teaching us, how to appreciate the time we have with people, so I get that. That's hard, right? But even though the journey is getting long, how are you making your home holy? And likewise, if you have brothers and sisters and you start to fight and fight and fight, and you're getting on each other's nerves, that is not making your house a holy home. And are you avoiding the people in your home because you just don't want to see them anymore, and you'd rather disappear into the basement and just play games all day? Or are you engaging and learning how to be with the people that you love? You know that I've lost my brother and my dad, and I can tell you, you don't want to waste time getting to know the people that you love. That, yeah, even just yesterday, my mom and I fought. We're getting tired of just seeing our faces. But it's so important that we remember that the home is holy. So my challenge to you today is to not hide, but to make your home holy. If you have siblings, then you guys work together and you do something in the home that will make it holier. You can clean it up. You can work together in the yard. You can cook dinner. If you are an only child, you can do the same things. You can, maybe cook a dinner, crack out some cookbooks, look up on the internet. Take over some of the chores and responsibilities and begin to take the burden and the pressure off of your parents, because you are required to make your home holy. And you can begin by saying a prayer in the morning as a family. You can set your alarm and go, nope, we're coming together. We're going to say the rosary. We're going to say the Divine Mercy Chaplet at 3 p.m. Don't care what you're doing. Drop it. Come to me. These are good things. This is you making memories in your home. COVID-19 could very well be the way your family grew together and became holy. Just like the Holy Family. Just like God sitting there saying, my house was so important to me. My home was so important to me that I wasn't going to let anybody steal from it or sack it. I was going to move it. So get up, guys. Don't waste this opportunity to make your home holy. What are you doing? Are you bringing holiness into this situation, or are you bringing aggravation and pain and suffering into this situation? Because if God taught us anything in the readings today, he said, those who do what I say get the kingdom of heaven. And by moving his holy home, he was showing us that nobody is allowed to destroy my home. Nobody is allowed to destruct what I constructed. Where I was raised is important to me. And so if you are not helping your home, if you're not helping make it a holy home, you're making it an unholy home, which is not what Jesus said. And he said, I am. Your challenge today, make it a holy home. See you at 2 p.m. if you want to just hang out for an hour and play some games. Love you guys. Let me know what you're doing to make your home holy.